Salutări, prieteni ai canalului nostru de YouTube. Recent, într-o emisiune în care am avut invitați pe Bogdan Cosmescu și pe Emil Grădinescu, v-am oferit un scurt fragment dintr-un interviu pe care l-am realizat cu un antrenor de la grupele de copii și juniori ale lui Bournemouth, pe numele său John Scott. Mulți dintre dumneavoastră ați cerut atunci în comentarii să difuzăm întregul interviu. Ei bine, astăzi vă facem pe plac, veți vedea cum a reușit Anglia să-și reseteze fotbalul juvenil, cum din 2008 până în 2018 s-au dus din școală în școală, au învățat profesorii de sport să facă antrenamente de fotbal, pe antrenorii deja din academii, cum să lucreze modern. Astfel s-a născut această generație extraordinară a fotbalului britanic, fotbalului englez mai precis, cu Saka, cu Foden, cu Bellingham. Aveți întregul interviu, sper să vă bucurați de el și așteptăm comentariile dumneavoastră.
JC, thank you very much for being here and for sharing with us some insights about how you do things in the UK with children. Yeah, you're a coach for small children, 9-10 years old.
Yeah, we call it foundation phase.
Foundation, yeah.
From 5 to 11 years old.
I will start by asking you how it is with parents in the UK, because in Romania, parents are a big problem.
Yeah.
They know more about football than coaches know. They attend practices, they shout during matches.
Yeah.
How is it there and how do you deal with them?
I think wherever you go in the world, I think it's the same. I think parents are always excitable. They want the best for their children. And I think some of them, I think they live their dreams, we say, through their children. This is not, I think it's a problem, as I say, in every country. But in England, I think we had to obviously face it face to face. We had a program called the Skills Program, and it started in 2008 from the FA, and this is where we begin to change the face of how we deliver to children. And I think it was then about educating parents. You know, it's like, I think we used to say, we would never come into your workplace and tell you how to do your job. Maybe it's time for you to not come into the grassroots places where coaches do their badges, they work hard and they give up all their spare time for that. So I think it was a big, massive campaign, and they started off with things like parent lines. So at football matches we started to see parent lines where they had to stand behind and it was far away from the pitch and things like that. But when it is a problem, and I still get that in academies now. So, you know, I think what you have to do is, as a coach, I think the parent, player and coach connection is massive. It's massive, and if you're going to get it right for the child, the parent has to buy in to what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think whether it's at grassroots or at the highest level for young players, they should be part of the process. So it's about communicating with them, telling them what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, how it's going to benefit the child, their child, and kind of give them information. And all we can do is, we can't tell them what to do. We can only guide, and we can give the reasons why. But we can put things in place now that says, if that happens, then we will tell you to leave. Your child can stay here, but you will have to leave. So it's being honest, I think, but being tough with them as well. So I think you have to look for ways to get those connections. You have to get those connections between you, the player, and the parent. And I'll give you an example. It might be, if I'm doing a session with my under-9s at Bournemouth, I'd like to let the parents know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how it works towards the game at the end of the week, and then what we're looking for in the games from the players. Because if they do say something to the players from the sideline, what you've got to remember is, if I'm little Johnny in the middle of the pitch, I'm getting shouted out by my parent to do this, I'm getting shouted out by my coach to do this, or my coach might be a better coach that gives me instructions how I need them, and then my parent is now shouting at me, I'm going to lose, I'm going to fall out of love with the game. I'm definitely going to, I don't want to be here anymore. So we have to let the parents know what the consequences are of the actions that they do and the actions we do. And I think as we talk, I think it'll be apparent that coaches have now become different as well. And we're still working on that one.
Yeah, I believe you. Do parents attend training sessions?
They have to watch from afar.
Yes.
And not all academies do that. Some it's parent-free, so they have to drop the children off, and they have to go. They even have fixtures now. It depends on the club, what they want, what their expectations are, and how they go about it. At Bournemouth, we allow them. So we're lucky at Bournemouth. We've just had a new training centre. It's being built. We've had a massive dome just put in place, full-size pitch. We've got a 3G pitch. They're making a brand new academy, and all the grass pitches. They want the first team and everything in one place. So at the moment, when the parents come in, they can watch from the 3G pitch from outside the parameters, and when they come in the dome, there's a barrier which they can watch their children. But again, there's rules and regulations, and if anyone steps over that line, then they know the consequences. It's as simple as that.
Very nice. What are the costs for a child in the UK to play football? In Romania, let's say parents have to pay schooling, the schooling of the football trainings, yes? Everything, the entire gear, shoes, equipment, everything must be bought by the parents. If the players go, I don't know, in some camp, also they must pay. So you get around, let's say, £70 a month, something like that. Parents do pay in Romania. What are the costs in the UK?
Before I answer that question, I think the first thing we have to address is what facilities do we have in the UK compared to Romania? And I don't know the difference. I'm learning. Obviously, my good friend Edgar Mark has brought me into this country, and I will get to learn a little bit more about what happens and how things are done. So I think it depends also what's available to the coaches, to the grassroots teams, how they operate, what sort of pitches they have, you know. So if you were to join a grassroots team in the UK, you pay your training fees and you pay match fees and you pay towards the kit that you get.
Yes.
But I think in England they find ways to subsidise that. So if you come from a big family with, say, 2 children, and you've got 2 or 3 children attending that club, then they will bring the price down, and it's just a cost. So I think now in England, the grassroots teams would create money for the club in certain ways. They have people that are specialists at that, and they will come in, and they're just part-time because they give up their time like everyone else. They make money for the club and try to subsidise all that. I would say, and I haven't been in grassroots football for a long time, and I can't give you a figure, but if I was spending £70 in a year, I'd expect most of that to be paid for. That's what I would say. I think it might be less.
Less than £70 a year?
Yes, because that's what they're trying to do. The only things that's changed is some clubs that are not as good at replicating those sort of situations will be clubs where they just charge you £2 per session. So when they turn up, it might be £2, it might be £5 for the whole week.
Yes.
And that might cover 2 sessions or 1 session in the game.
Yes.
So that's another way of doing it. And then you can work out over a year how much that costs.
So football is cheaper in the UK.
I think it's becoming cheaper. I think it's becoming cheaper.
And what happened in Romania is this.
Go on.
If you attend a football match,
right,
let's say in Bucharest, between teams, good teams, you will see in the parking all kinds of expensive cars, because mainly rich people can allow a child to enter a good academy, to pay the fees and everything.
Yeah.
So the poorer children have less and less access to football.
Right.
And in the old days, it used to be that from the poorer class, you get the traditionally good players, not from the richer, because the richer are not so motivated. And I want to know if this is a thing also in the UK, or it's the other way around, because from what you're telling me, UK is trying to get everyone to play football.
Yes, I think we may as well go back in time to answer some of these questions. I think in our country, football, okay, we won the World Cup in 1966, all right, and we live off that in our country. We now have young players that are coming through. We have a good squad through the changes we've made, and we're quite lucky now to have a good pool of players that we believe that can go on and try and win something. Now, to get from, if I went back to 2008, this is where the FA implemented a thing called the skills program, where they brought specialists in for the age groups. So Sir Trevor Brookin ran the program and brought in lots of good people. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Pete Sturgis. He's the figurehead of the foundation phase in our country, and he sorted the 5 to 11-year-olds. Now, to do that takes massive change. You can't just change the way people think, and access to football is massive. We had the same problem. Football was quite expensive. There wasn't many places to do it. There was children, like you say, that couldn't afford it, that couldn't do it. And for us, that was massive, and we had to address that. Now, we said we were specialists, and obviously I got my first, well, if I go back in time myself, my first role was with a grassroots club, a local grassroots club. I ended up in a place called Blandford, which is in Dorset. I was in the army, so that was my last posting, and I wanted to stay there, so I did my grassroots coaching there. Then I was lucky enough, I always say lucky enough, but I worked hard, and I became National Grassroots Coach of the Year in 2006. So from there on, I then entered the skills program as a specialist with 5 to 11-year-olds, but I wasn't a specialist. So we had a professor, when the program was started, we had, I think, 66 coaches that covered the whole country. So that's the whole of the UK, sorry, not the UK, of England.
England.
Okay. So Sir Trevor Brookin's, his vision was, could we have a skills team in every county, which would cover the whole of the country. So what that meant was a team of 4 or 6, depending on the county size. And that group would then be the pioneers for the country at that age group to now pave a way for children to have access to football, but also to change the way we deliver to those young people. Mm-hmm. And also, if you're changing that, the biggest change as well you have to do is change the way coaches coach. So it started in 2008, and that program ran to 2018. So if you look at the top players in the country, you know, the English players that play in the Premiership teams, Saka, you know, these kind of players, they have come through a different system now to the old school players.
Yes, and their qualities are different of the typical British, I don't know, 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s player, 90s player. Yeah, they are much more skilled.
For sure, and if you go back in time, I remember when I played, I was told not where to go, what not to do, what to do, and if I did a certain thing, it wasn't allowed. So all the creativity straight away has been taken out of me.
And what has changed in this, regarding this thing?
So,
what do you do now with children?
So, if you're going to change in this country, let's get it straight then. If you wanted to change the environment, the landscape for young children, you have to start in the places they come from, and that's primary school. That was my main objective as a skills coach. Most of my work was done in primary schools. So all your young players will come from primary schools, whether they're female or male.
Yes.
So if you go into a primary school, you have to see what the teachers are doing with them in PE. That would be the first thing. And if the teachers now in England, and this is not being sexist in no way whatsoever, but we are primarily female teachers in all the primary schools. And when it comes to PE, what it was we found was that talking to them is that they know about football, they know about certain sports, but they don't have the education, they don't know the technical skills, they don't want to give the wrong information to the young children. So I would typically turn up at a school and see children running around the outside of a pitch to warm up because it pleases the teacher, but in actual fact that's doing nothing for them physically because they're not adults. So that's where we had to start. So we had to start going into schools and educating teachers and try and leave a legacy. That was the main thing. So my job was go into a school, work with a school for 8 weeks and then move on to another school, but I would cover probably 50 schools in a year or more. Okay. And in my partnership I was given, I probably have 50 schools or more. I had one of the biggest partnerships in Dorset, which was North Dorset. And I managed to cover quite a few of them schools. I managed to go to every school eventually and get some sort of help and support to those schools. Now when I go in there, I have to show PE teachers fundamental movement skills for the children, and this is done through tag games. tag games are one of the best things for children. They love it. You make it competitive. They change direction. They're having to make decisions. But you have to be creative with those tag games. You can't just play, well, you can play the same tag every week, but children will get bored. So if you think of a computer game and children love computer games because there's certain things in computer games that make it addictive to them. They get levels, they have to work out things, they have to earn things, they want to get to the next level, they make lots of mistakes, but there's no one behind them shouting and screaming at them. They just work it out for themselves. So to get through level 1, I have to do this, this, this and this, then I get to level 2. Same as my PE lessons. I then make my PE lessons around a computer game. When you're making a tag game, there's levels. So to earn your invisibility cloak so you don't get tagged in the next game, you've got to do this, this and this. But I'm making sure they do the movement skills. And then there's what's good for Johnny isn't good for Jimmy. So how do I now differentiate for 30 children in a class where the better players get this, and this is where the skill of the skills coach comes in and what we had to learn. If I'm doing a lesson, it might look to the untrained eye that everyone's doing the same, but they're not. They're doing the same skill, they're doing the same game, but they're doing it differently. So as an example, I might have a bulldog game, which we call a tag game, where you have to run from one end to the other and try and get to the end without being tagged by the taggers in here. So the ones that are not very good, I might have 8 children against 1 person, so they get lots of success. The middle group might get 2 taggers, and there might be, I don't know, 8 children again, so they get a little bit more success, but it's harder. And the really good players, I have 3 against 3. So it's the same game, except all the levels and all have different colours, but you can move up the colours during the game. So I think to answer your question again, you have to start with basic fundamental skills and then add the football. If you want a child to move well with a football, then you need that child to move well without a football. So in those games, they have to run, skip, hop, jump, move sideways, move backwards. And all those fundamental skills, what they get in doing multi-sports as well, encourage them to do gymnastics, encourage them to do basketball, or whatever sports are available to them at school. And I think then you start to get those children moving the right way, enjoying what they're doing and having fun. And again, you can tap into what children love. If they like Harry Potter, let's play Harry Potter today.
You mentioned computer games.
Yeah.
Computer games are competition for football?
Yeah, of course.
Do you also? I imagine you feel this in England. You know, children being drawn away from football by phones, tablets, iPads, and so on. Yeah,
I think you're competing, aren't you? You're competing. It's a different from you or I. When I might be a lot older than you, but you and I would have gone out in the streets and played football. I mean, I know I was out, my mum had to drag me in off the streets when I was younger. I was out all day.
Yes.
But not just that, we did other things. We climbed trees, we went on bicycle rides. We were always out doing something. So our movement skills were good. And as you say, now we have to compete with the computer games, the phones, the tablets. But I think we can only help these children fall in love with the game if we do these sort of things right in the right area. So if I go back to the primary schools, you then construct your football around that. You've got to remember, you'll have children in there that don't even know how to kick a ball. And with teachers, it's just saying, look, if it's dribbling, it's just small touches and keep the ball close to your feet. That's the only technical information you need to know. It's as simple as that. And if the child takes bigger touches, they have to decide, when do I take the big touch in a game? When do I take the small touch? So it's little, tiny, technical points. It doesn't have to be long-winded and things like that. And then you just get the teachers buying into the games that link into what you're doing. And again, you have to be creative as a school teacher. So all we're doing is, we basically do is, I'm taking your lesson that you do in the classroom and I'm bringing it out onto the field. Because you do this and you're good at this, but you do it in the classroom. But we're bringing it now onto the field. And obviously I'm just skimming over the top.
Yes.
To be a specialist. And if I go back to that 2008, where we had 66 coaches in a room with all the top people, and Pete Sturgis brought in someone from Brunel University, and he asked us a question, said, are you specialists at 5 to 11? We all went, yeah, we've been chosen, yeah, we are. He spoke to us for an hour on what specialists entail, and then he asked the same question, and no one put their hand up. So then we knew we were on a journey to become specialists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we go back to this country now, if you want to change football, it has to start at primary schools. And also in the skills program, we had skills centres, which was free, and it was subsidised by the national, the FA.
The FA.
Yeah, and obviously we would make money however the FA, and that, I don't know that side of things, mine was mainly football, and how they do that and subsidise that across the country and how that program's worked is worked out by people that know how to do those sort of things. But I know that we would do skill centres. Now there would be a fee for those skill centres, but because a lot of the equipment we've got is given to us and bought for us, it would be something like, I don't know, if I can, off the top of my head, it probably worked out £1 a session. And I don't know how, that was going back in 2008.
Yes.
So if you was doing a block of 8 weeks, £8, £1 to cover the cost of your child to go in there, which is quite good.
Yes.
But we also took into consideration children that couldn't afford it, do you know? And we talked to the parents, and we keep that not secret, but confidential. Keep it confidential, that if we can help out families that can't afford it and get their children in, then get them in, because they need to have that opportunity. So that's basically where we started. But then our work, it covered not just that, it covered schools, the skill centres that we had in the areas, and then we went into grassroots clubs. And we worked with coaches and their teams and showed them ways that the new way forward. But at the same time, we then had to change our coaching badges. So we had to help them do that as coaches. We had to change the way that we deliver to children. Everything became age-specific, language. The level of all the sessions and lessons were age-specific. It was player-centered. Everything was then, it's not about me, it's about them. Everything has to be done for them, not me. And myself, I've been through that process when I was younger. I was lucky enough to do it when I was younger. They say you're born with talent, but I don't think it's talent you're born with. I think it's opportunities. I think you have genetic advantages. You know, if your parents take you out every day, if they're athletic themselves, you've got a good chance. But I think, and I played chess at a young age, and I was lucky enough to have the county champion as my teacher. So he, without me knowing, he would, not just me, but others as well, he would put us through this process that I'm now learning in 2008. And I loved the game. And I was terrible at school with maths and English, but chess brought me to a higher level of maths and English. I became a county champion at 10 years old. I've only played it for 2 years because of this man, because it was all about me. So when I saw this program, it took me back, and I went, I know this works. This does work. So yeah, it was a start of a journey for me.
How do you see the competition? Nowadays, every child gets a medal, no matter what the result is.
Okay.
This is on one side. On the other side, for many years, even children, 8, 10-year-old children, would play in Romania, and there would be, they would play for points.
Okay.
And now that's off. They don't do that anymore. They say children until, I think, 12, 14, something like that, they shouldn't have standings, yeah.
Okay.
How do you see the competition? How do you get children to be competitive? And how do you see this thing of getting a medal?
First of all, I think Romania have it right when you're saying to me, there's no more points. Okay. Where do I start? It's this, in England, we're the same. We have taken all that away. If we want to develop children, now if I've gone through that, I've just told you about the process that we've gone through as a country for coaching. Now, if that's going to work, the children have to stay in love with the game, they have to enjoy what they're doing, and they have to have the same opportunities. So it's probably the same in your country as it was with ours, and it still happens in our country. Don't take me wrong that, oh, it's all brilliant in England, because it's not. We still have coaches that want to win, but it's about them, not the players. It's about their ego and about make me look a good coach. So I want all the biggest, strongest players, and we'll smash every team in this league and look best. But development-wise, what you'll find is those children are probably Q1 children born in September, so they're the oldest in their age group, they're the biggest and strongest, and they'll fall by the wayside because they're not getting developed by that coach. They're just smashing teams. He'll win medals, they'll win medals, and we call that fish and chip paper. You eat your fish and chips, throw the paper away, because that's forgotten. And the little young players, or all the players that are getting this development the right way, will have a chance. They'll have more of a chance to be a professional footballer than these children, for me. So when it comes to competitive, we're the same. I think in the country at the moment we are, well, in the academies we don't record any results. No results until they are in competitions at the higher end, which we're talking about 15s, 16s that now into competitions, cups, Premier League cups, and the 18s and 21s are in competitive leagues.
Yes.
And I think a lot of countries, I think, have brought into, I think Belgium or another country, the Dutch have always been like that. And Germany are now changing the way they look at children's football as well. I think even in Germany now, they're not having goalkeepers at young ages, and their formats have gone smaller. And this is so crucial. The formats in football need to be, I still don't think England have got it right, that's just my personal opinion. I still think that the formats need to be smaller, and we have to wait a little bit longer for the 11v11. So if you look in our country, we go 11v11 around about under 13. I think they should still play 9v9 until they're 14, 15, and then they can start playing 11v11, because you're trying to develop the player. And the toughest thing to do there is if you've got 18 players, you can play 2 games, but then you might play against teams that have only got 10 players. So what do we do with those extra players to get all those minutes at the top end? At the bottom end, I think you'll still get the same in England. The stronger players might get more minutes on the pitch than the little ones, but we try to encourage that everybody gets the same and try to develop your team rather than winning. So if you go back to your question, it's not about winning, it's not being recorded, it's now about the children. I think if you, as a parent now, you have to help your child and choose, do I want that coach shouting at my child and winning games and falls out of love with the game and might not even have a chance at this sport, or do I now give it to the coach that I think is going to help them, develop them and give them a chance to stay in love with the game or get to the best place? And I think the key here is having specialists in every age group. And I think to have that in this country, you would have to strip it right back, do the school thing, get the coaching education better. I'm not saying it's wrong, but if you want to develop better players, better people, you need to get all that in place, and it has to be united. Everyone, look, if we're going to have a better national team in this country, and we're going to have better football for our children to stay in love with it, let's work together. And if we go back to that triangle, which is really important, the child in the centre, and then you've got the parent and the coach, and maybe the club you put in there as well.